This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutsky is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutsky.
As we do every single Wednesday, we are joined by Todd Lutsky from Cushing & Dolan. If you listeners out there have any questions regarding your estate plan or Medicaid protection, irrevocable versus irrevocable trust, you can give our studio line a call at 888-205-2263. Again, that studio line number for any of your questions for Todd Lutsky from Cushing & Dolan is 888-205-2263. Todd, how are we doing today?
I'm never better, and you?
I'm doing great. The weather is fantastic. Summer is officially here. I'm going to kick us off with a question that I have for you. What are some of the considerations or traits that listeners should be thinking about out there if they're trying to determine what is better for them, a revocable trust or irrevocable? What are some of the typical characteristics that you would ask people to think about when preparing to go down either one of those roads?
Yeah, so this is, I always like to say this is the most frequently asked question I get probably in the estate planning world is, what's the difference? That's
right.
what in essence, what you're saying is, what's the difference? Why would I want one over the other? And is there, a problem with one versus another? A couple of just regular things to think about. I would say size of your estate matters. I mean, if you're self-insured for a nursing home, then you really don't need the irrevocable trust. If you have tons of long-term care insurance, you probably don't need the irrevocable trust. Younger people that have minor children that are probably in their 40s, 50s, they might not need an irrevocable trust yet. Doesn't mean we don't revisit our estate plan as we get older. I can't help but think of this client I met recently who did planning in 1998. One of them had died in 2021. The other one was 87, and they never revisited their documents. The kids came in, and so they never revisited them to change them, and they never funded them. So it was completely wasted. It was like, wow, what a disaster. Just happened the other week. So, I would say age matters, size of the estate matters, but, in general, I want people, the one thing I want them to take away from your question is, I think they have to learn. So if they've decided that they want an irrevocable trust, or if they've decided they don't want one because they think they're too restrictive, I want them to learn that that's not always the case. I think that the guide we're giving away is going to help them answer that question as to perhaps not so much how they're different, but how they're similar. Mm-hmm. These kinds of trusts, right? Now, remember, folks, I want to be very clear that there are many kinds of irrevocable trusts out there. There are kinds of trusts that sort of wealthier people who want to make assets go outside of their estate for estate tax purposes. In other words, a completed gift for gift tax purposes. Those trusts will likely be more restrictive than the irrevocable trust we're mentioning in this guide. This isn't the differences between revocable and all irrevocable trusts. This is the differences between revocable trusts and these Medicaid irrevocable trusts. These kind, you keep the control you want. Like, you can put your house in there and live there. You can pay your bills. You can sell your house. You can buy another house. These are all things that you can do today. These are all things that you can do with a revocable trusts. Even the income taxes are no different. You pay income taxes on assets in your revocable trust at your rate, your own personal rate. These Medicaid irrevocable trusts are also grantor trusts, which means they are taxed and at your personal rate. So even though you're filing an extra return, you're not paying extra taxes. So, folks, more similarities than differences in these trusts.
A lot to consider here. If you have any questions for Todd Lutsky here, you can give our studio line a call at 888-205-2263, whether it pertains to trust or anything in the estate planning world. Give our studio line a call. Again, that number is 888 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we'll have your questions with Todd Lutsky from Cushy & Dolan right after this.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. You're listening to Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
We are back in studio with Todd Lutsky from Cushy & Dolan. If you have any questions in the estate planning realm, whether it be regarding estate taxes, trusts, or beneficiary designations, anything of that nature, give our studio line a call at 888-205-2263. Again, 888-205-2263 for any of your questions in the estate planning realm for Todd Lutsky. Todd, we were talking before in the segment regarding irrevocable and revocable trust, and you had mentioned that there are several similarities between the two, but my question for you is on the irrevocable trust side of things, how does it offer protection for those people who are looking for it from the nursing home? I know you can get really into the weeds here, but just from a real 30,000-foot view, how does it provide that protection aspect?
So with an irrevocable trust, as much as you have a lot of control over it, there has to be language in it that says what you cannot do. Although it's very, very few things you cannot do. You can, like I say, live there, collect the income, you can manage the investments, but there's special language that says you cannot have direct access to the principal. So if you cannot get it, the nursing home cannot get it.
Right.
Now, I say that, but the nurse, it takes 5 years, so you got to make sure you set up the trust with that language in it, and then 5 years later, that's the protection you get. Now, of course, my saying that you can't get it directly doesn't mean you can't get it indirectly. And again, from a 30,000-foot view, that's what you have to go through and figure out how to do that. But, folks, I think the big thing here is, and what I want to really stress for you is that this situation is we allow you to get, this new guide, right, which is the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts. We're getting close to the end of the month, but this is the most frequently asked questions. Not only does it have in there how they work from an income and an estate tax question, it also has in there how they operate day to day, which is what you were driving at just a moment ago, Paul. It's going to help us figure out what the do's and don'ts are with the revocable and the irrevocable. So I think it will explain more similarities than differences. I think if you've not done your planning and you're trying to figure out which way is right for you, this is going to give you those answers. And I also think that if you've done your planning and are thinking now it's time to shift and maybe I need to learn more about irrevocable because I want to protect from the nursing home when I was younger, I didn't care, this guide will do it. Call and get it, 866-848-5699. or legalexchangeshow.com. Again, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
We're going to go to the phones here. We've got Brian on in Chelmsford. Brian, you're on with Todd Lutsky.
Hey, Todd, how you doing? Listen, I just had a question for you. I have a corporation I have to pay every year. Do you have to pay every year now having a trust?
So is your corporate, you mean you have like the $500 a year that you pay the state, that kind of thing?
Yeah, 400, right. You got to pay the minimum and all that, and then
you
got to fill out a, the $125 thing for the, for the state. I forget what it's called, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair question, yeah. And I think I can answer it for you both on the revocable side and the irrevocable side. So these trusts are not recorded anywhere. So many people come in and say, well, I feel like so-and-so did a trust for me, but I think that they didn't do it right because it's not recorded anywhere. And doesn't it have to be recorded? And I think of recording, I think of fees, right? Whenever you record things in the state, you think of fees that you got to pay. So, and maybe that's what you're driving at here, Brian. So the answer is that these are not recorded anywhere. So they are not, there is no filing fee. There's no annual filing fee. So let's talk about other fees? Are there other expenses associated with it now that we know there's no annual filing fee? What about, a revocable trust? Does it have to file a separate income tax return? Well, no, it doesn't. It's revocable. Everything in the revocable trust is recorded under your Social Security number. So if you put your bank account in or your brokerage account in, you're going to list it under the name of the trust. So let's say it's the Lutsky Family Trust. It would be under my social. So the 1099s come to me. I simply file my 1040 just like I always do, and I report the income taxes right there. So I don't even need to pay the accountant to do a separate tax return if I can do it myself. What about the irrevocable trust? Again, not recorded, no annual fee whatsoever, no legal annual fee, that's for sure, at least on my part when I do it. But how are the taxes treated? Is that going to create us with any kind of an additional expense? Well, it's possible. If the irrevocable trust has just a house in it, just a vacation home, something in which we are not renting. So I'm driving at the fact that it has no income. And that's not uncommon, folks. Generally, people put their home and their vacation home in. They're their biggest assets, and they want to protect them. So if that's all that's in this Medicaid irrevocable trust, then there is no ID number that I would obtain for the trust. There's no reason for the IRS to know that you have this trust because there is no income. So if there is no income, then there's no need to file. So I don't even have a separate bill to pay the accountant to file the 1041 income tax return for the trust. However, as many of you know, that's not all we put in these trusts. A lot of our clients say, we want to protect our investment portfolio as well. So let's retitle the, $500,000 investment portfolio to the trust as well. Well, that's going to generate interest and dividends. And by the way, in order for me to put it into the irrevocable trust, we would need to get you a tax ID number. So now the IRS knows that you have this trust. That's the Social Security number for the irrevocable trust. So it's going to be expecting a tax return. And if it generates, I believe it's some small number, more than $100 or more than $300 in income, you need to file. However, we create these trusts as grantor trusts for income tax purposes. So while you need to file, and the form you file is a Form 1041, a little different than our 1040, but very similar. You got to file the 1041, the interest, the dividends, the capital gains that are generated from that 1099 that's going to come out from the investment portfolio to the name of the trust will be picked up on the trust. However, this trust pays no tax. Now, don't get too excited about that because it doesn't pay the tax, but it kicks out a K-1 form, or what they call a grantor letter, that generates to you, the donor, telling you here's what was earned by this trust. Interest, dividends, gains. Yes, it retains its same character to you, and you pick it up on your personal 1040. Why that's important is because you are still paying the same income tax that you were paying as a revocable trust holder. You don't pay any more or any less. You pay the same. Again, more similarities than differences with these trusts, folks. And lastly, the only additional cost would be, you might have to have an accountant prepare that tax return. So we'll see. But I think part of this point is, folks, that these differences, that there are probably more similarities than differences between these revocable and irrevocable trusts.
A lot of great information that we went over today, Todd. Thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are commonly used to protect your assets, but there are significant differences between the two. Don't take chances securing your future. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called The Differences Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder life planning, and they can answer critical questions that you may have as you determine which trust may be best for you and your family. The guide contains crucial information about a variety of topics, including the income tax effects of both trusts, ways to leave assets to your children, as well as many other factors you should consider in the estate planning process, such as your net worth, your age, and your marital status. Call today, 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.